It is just a monolith of torque and horsepower. Welcome to Downshift. My name is Matt, and I have had an incredibly special week here with the Rolls-Royce Ghost. This is the Series 2, the facelift, and as you can imagine, with something this opulent and this excessive, there's a lot to cover. So I'm going to walk you through everything you need to know about the Rolls-Royce Ghost Series 2. Let's get into it. Now, before we dive into the meat and potatoes with this Ghost, we're going to zoom in on some of the funky little features that you might not otherwise know about. Starting with your Spirit of Ecstasy hood ornament, the iconic silhouette that dons the hood of every Rolls-Royce. Now, this has a couple different functions. Obviously, it has the theft function, so if I try to steal it, it will retract into the hood. And I can also have it automatically retract into the hood when I lock the car. Fold the mirrors in, and then retract this, so people passing by won't even be inspired to steal it. And there's even a customized button on the interior here that I can press to get this thing up or down in a flash. And of course, you do have coach doors for not just your rear, but also your front doors. They are automatically assisted, but they're not automatic opening all the way. But one of the nice things is I can position this exactly how I want. I don't have to wait for a little detent or preset opening like you would in every other car. And as you might expect, they're automatically closing as well. I can close both of the front doors with these buttons here, and I can close my rear door with this button right here. Very slow and dramatic indeed. And it wouldn't be a Rolls-Royce video without showing the umbrellas. We do have our little release button here. It pops out, and then you have your umbrella. And you have your double R's monogrammed on the handle. And then it pops in with a nice satisfying click. I should also mention there's an umbrella on the other side as well. But what we have down here is your VIN plaque, Rolls-Royce Goodwood, and then a serial number. This is about a $1,200 option, but it does have some class to it. And of course we have floating center caps for our Art Deco Gatsby-esque wheels, and they look really cool. And then we're making our way to the back so I can show you the $3,700 illuminated tread plates. It looks a little bit more dramatic at night, but we also, in typical Rolls-Royce fashion, have the Starry Night headliner. And yes, you will get shooting stars that run across the headliner. And this is just spectacular and intoxicating at night. But one of Paulo's favorite things about this car, and the Cullinan that we were in, is the Rolls-Royce bespoke audio system. It sounds spectacular, but don't touch the grills because they do have a tendency to be a little bit sharp, almost like cheese graters, but they do sound the business. And who doesn't love a nice, thick lambswool car? I mean, look at this. Look at this. You're going to want to go barefoot in here, so I guess it's a nice thing that we're some of the first journalists to get our hands on this. And one thing we complained about in the Cullinan was that the cup holders up front were a little bit too small, and they continue to be here in the Ghost. But good news, because in the rear we have a different cup holder. This one doesn't sound like it's breaking when you close it, and it does in fact fit my water bottle. So you'll love to see that. And if you couldn't tell, purple was the color theme of this car. This is Belladonna purple, and even on the interior, you have purple leather. And for a zero-cost option, Rolls-Royce will color match your key. That's pretty sweet. Close. Close. And then, just a little ASMR stuff. It sounds like the turn signal is like whenever you've been at a wedding and you clink your champagne flute to make the couples kiss, it kind of sounds a little bit like that. And speaking of ASMR, and our last two little things have to do with the trunk. One, obviously you have a powered trunk, but you even have a little Spirit of Ecstasy on your powered trunk release button. All right, so with all those little odds and ends covered, let's zoom back out and talk about what competes against a Rolls-Royce Ghost. And I'm playing a little fast and loose with the term competes. You could think of a Mercedes Maybach S580, which could compete against this. It's similar dimensions, but it doesn't have a V12 and it doesn't have the prestige that you get with the Rolls-Royce moniker and the Spirit of Ecstasy on the hood. If you go a little bit more upmarket, you can get into a Bentley flying spur, which definitely has a little bit more clout, but again, doesn't quite reach the same heights as a Rolls-Royce. So what's the big deal for 2025? What's new? Well, 2025 introduces the Series 2, which you can kind of think of it as the Series 2 is to Rolls-Royce as LCI is to BMW. It signifies a little bit of a refresh. We'll talk about that with the exterior styling and some of the interior updates as we go through the video here. But the main event is what's going on under the hood here. This is a rare gem indeed. What we have here is a 6.75 liter twin turbocharged V12. It's the same as the Cullinan, and it's about the same output as well. 563 horsepower, you can get 592 in your black badge version, and 626 pound-feet of torque. Again, you can up the pound-foot to 664 in the black badge. There is no sport mode designation here. That would be a little unbecoming and a little uncouth, you could think. But you do have a low range on your transmission, which will kind of put you in a lower gear and simulate something like a sport mode. But either way, 0 to 60 is still done in under 5 seconds in this Ghost, even without the more powerful black badge treatment. And you're probably wondering in 2025 how thirsty a twin turbocharged V12 is. Now the EPA says you're going to get about 14 mpg, but we blew that out of the water with a 19.2 on our Lakeshore Loop fuel economy test. And one of the little things here, you can see where the Spirit of Ecstasy goes to hide when you open the trunk. So it doesn't get caught and it doesn't damage itself as you lift the bonnet. Now power from that big V12 goes through an 8-speed automatic transmission. It says it's satellite aided, and what it's going to do is use GPS to determine when it's going to maybe come up on a hill and throw you in the proper gear to maximize torque and keep smoothness in the forefront. Now of course you do have all-wheel drive as standard, and with this long sedan you do have rear steer, and it does help it feel a little bit more agile and nimble. Maybe a little bit more agile and nimble than it needs to be with seats that are this unbolstered. But either way, you have air suspension, and your dampers have dampers on this thing. You've even got foam in the tires for maximum isolation and refinement. And this thing will even use cameras to read the road in front of you and pre-adjust the suspension before you hit a bump to maximize ride quality. And you do have, shockingly, a 50-50 weight distribution. But as we touch on styling, now this new Series 2 Ghost that we have here, our tester is draped in belladonna purple, and it is the most spectacular color I might have ever seen. Depending on where the sun is, this can either look black and menacing or sparkle and shimmer with plum hues. Now you do have your typical Pantheon grille with your Spirit of Ecstasy running above, and you do have a more clean running light design than you had last year. You also have a slightly reworked lower fascia to clean things up a little bit, so leave it down in the comments what you prefer the look of, this or the pre-facelift. But around the side we are fitted with 22-inch wheels. They're a $10,000 option, and they're very Art Deco, and I absolutely love them. They're very Gatsby Roaring 20s, and what is this if not the Roaring 20s? We also do have a front fender badge that says Rolls-Royce, but otherwise it's an incredibly simple profile. Obviously the coach doors are chrome, the window treatments are chrome, and that stuff will be blacked out if you went for the black badge. But it's a simple and iconic profile. But around back there's subtle revisions to your taillights, there's no exposed exhaust, and there's no badging that says Ghost anywhere on the exterior of this car. Subtlety is in fact the name of the game with a Rolls-Royce. But we will check out the trunk. As you can imagine, it's powered for open and close, and we talked about this. You've got a Ghost for your close function. Other than that, there's not a lot going on. It's a 17 cubic foot trunk, so it's not enormous, but it's not small either. But the thing that strikes me is that, one, the rear seats don't fold because we have our executive rear seat package, or whatever it's called. We don't really have any bag hangers. I suspect people aren't doing a lot of shopping or utility or cargo carrying in the back of the Ghost. And we'll check out the rear seats. Of course, we have our coach doors. They're mechanically assisted, but they're not automatic opening in the way that the i7 was that we tested the other year. Of course, we do have our umbrella. We talked about that. But look at this interior. This cashmere gray with this purple is just spectacular. We've got this kind of ash gray open pore wood that rims the interior. We've got memory seats for our executive rear seating package. And of course, we have 3-level massage. We've got a charger in here. And even the interior of this lower kind of cubby area is wrapped in purple leather. I absolutely love that. Illuminated tread plate, the same kind of thick lambswool carpeting down here, but I will step in to the rear seats. But before I do, I should say that we have these leather with embroidered double R pillows. Very, very luxe, as you would probably expect. Now I'm sitting back here, and again, I hope that's coming through in the mic. We have our typical plungers for our vents. This means the vent is open, that means it's closed, and I will close the door. The rear doors close a little bit slower than the front doors, maybe for just a little bit of added dramatic flair. But we do have a button here on the right-hand side to release our picnic table. It's got the same really nice open pore gray wood here, and then this button releases our infotainment, or our rear theater package. We also have this, so I can adjust my seat, recline it here. If I press this button, seat 2, then I can adjust the seat in front of me. And then depending on where this is, the screen will reorient itself to minimize glare as much as it can. Look at that, that's pretty wild. But I also do have a little cubby here, and if I don't want to use this as a touch screen, I can use this. I can use a little command screen. I select the right-hand screen, and then I can adjust this screen over here. And one of the big updates for the Series 2 here is now you can stream something here and something entirely different over there. That's not something you could do in the past, but now you can. So that is really quite nice. One of the things that I have noticed, if I want this to go away, if I just want the screen to go away, I have to press this. But if I want both the screen and the picnic table to go away, I have to press this. So I can't do one and then two, because for whatever reason it's going to kick the screen back at me, and then I can hit this and then it all goes away. But you do have 4 zones of climate control with heated seats, as we talked about, some chargers down here, and the same really nice clink sound. And if you're wondering how difficult it is to push the far side to get the door open, when you pull this trigger, it's going to automatically deploy and start opening itself a little bit. I think the wind is taking it more than anything, so it's not actually automatic, but once you pull that trigger, it does open to about here, and then it's incredibly easy, it's mechanically assisted to open it even further. And if you want to close it and you don't want to use the button for whatever reason, I suspect that's why this upper door pocket is there. And we'll check out the front seats, of course. Same sort of stuff, door pocket up here, beautiful bespoke audio speakers. Our little window control toggle is a joystick, and it is weirdly satisfying to use. Absolutely love that. But the cashmere gray with the purple and the open pore ash wood, we can again control that seat over there. I've got my massage settings here, or my massage intensities over here, and then I can further finesse it from the screen. Memory seats, the same kind of leather wrapped interior cubby for that door pocket, and our same cashmere and purple interior. This is spectacular to look at. These seats are wonderfully comfortable. We've got a little black or darker gray tertiary color in here as well. Heated, cooled, massage, the whole thing, and of course a heated steering wheel as well. And as we talk about the interior, the cabin design, the materials as a whole, I am obsessed with the spec that we have here. The cashmere gray is so well complemented by that Taylor purple contrast color, that black tertiary color. It is so tasteful with that open pore gray wood. It just looks incredible. But more than that, everything that you touch feels incredibly expensive. This leather is some of the most supple I've ever felt in a car. All of the open pore wood breaks up some of the contrast. We've got genuine metal air vents like we talked about before, but we have physical buttons. That's really the thing. It's kind of like this old nostalgic time gone by, but Rolls-Royce has not succumbed to putting everything in a screen. Everything still has a physical button. It's very tactile, it's very ergonomic, and it makes so much sense. We do have a 2-tone steering wheel here, and that makes the steering wheel a little bit thicker, which is something I kind of appreciate. I can't imagine just having the solid black one and having it even be thinner, but we've got purple across the dash, in the steering wheel, in the door cards, on the seats, and everything works spectacularly. The only thing that I have a complaint about is some of these buttons down here for our 1 through 8 customized buttons. They're plastichrome rather than actual alloys, and so they don't feel quite as expensive, and they do catch light a little bit and reflect into my eye at times, as you can kind of see right here. But no, overall, probably the best interior matched with the Cullinan that we were in the other day. This is probably one of the nicest interiors I've ever been in. You can also get a glass panel that goes from pillar to pillar across your dash. That's new for the Series 2, and the fact that you now have a little Spirit of Ecstasy accompanying your analog clock on your dash. That's new, and she is underlit, so very dramatic and gothic looking at night. I just noticed this actually. We've got the VIN plaque on the driver's side of the car too. On the Cullinan we had this VIN plaque spec, but it was only on the passenger side, so the Ghost apparently gets both sides. And when it comes to the technology, it's not overwhelming at all. You've got everything that you need and not really too many extra frills. I do have a head-up display that gives me enough information. I do have a fully digital instrument cluster. Now this is one of the best because it has, as you can see, been color matched to the car. This is a choice that you make when you commission the car. This is not something that you do after the fact. This actually doesn't change a whole lot. So I like the fact that they chose to customize it and make it color matched with the purple for the rest of the car. But your main event is over here. This is your 10.25-inch infotainment screen. It's running new Spirit software. It's very quick. It's similar to BMW's iDrive, as you could imagine. And it is pretty perfect. I don't really have any complaints. If you don't want to use it as a touchscreen, you can use the center control module or iDrive wheel, but it's fast. The processing power is great. The black levels are awesome. You do have, is it wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto? You've got a personal assistant, and you do even have some controls for Spotify. And this is one of my favorite little things, the traffic camera information. Depending on where you are, in your head-up display can actually warn you of upcoming traffic cameras. This is not as big a problem in the States, but maybe if you're in Europe and you don't want to get a ticket, you can adjust your speed. Not that you would ever be speeding in your Rolls-Royce, but this is a nice little helper in case you accidentally got a little heavy-footed. And then the last thing I want to talk about in terms of technology is the driver assistance suite. You do have adaptive cruise, and you have like a passive lane keep, which will kind of vibrate the steering wheel and like nudge you a little bit into your lane, but you don't have like an active lane centering like you would in BMW's Pilot Assist Pro or whatever they're calling it. So it's not going to drive for you, is what I mean to say. But everything else with the technology is pretty spectacular. But the last thing that we'll talk about before we go for a bit of a drive is the price. Now, a Ghost Series 2 starts at $355,000. We have about $98,000 in options, or in other words, a Cadillac CT5 Blackwing's worth of options. So as tested, we're at about $453,275. That is one of the most expensive press cars we've ever tested, but it's also one of the best. So let me talk about that a little bit more behind the wheel. Hey guys, real quick, Matt here. Just wanted to say I hope you've been enjoying the video. If you have, would really appreciate you hitting that subscribe button. I know it doesn't seem like a big deal, but it does go a long way in helping us get access to cars sooner and get access to manufacturer engineers so we can get more information on the cars and get you more information so you can make better decisions. So would really appreciate you hitting that subscribe, like, comment, the whole YouTube thing. But with that, let's get back to the video. Ghost in low, because there's no sport mode. V12 twin turbo. It just builds and builds and builds. There's just torque. It is just a monolith of torque and horsepower. It's just wild. There is something to be said about the experience of piloting a Rolls-Royce. And I don't think the usual words that we use to describe cars really fit here. Because to use words like supple and smooth and luxurious, we use those words to describe things like Cadillacs and, you know, Audis and things like this. Is on a different level. This is a transcendent experience to what you're going to get anywhere else. Almost in the terms of like, you have to experience it for yourself to really understand. I don't think the normal words, at least the words in my vocabulary, really do it justice. Waft comes to mind, effortless comes to mind, cloud comes to mind. But really they just don't quite do it. You know, other things get close. Maybachs with E-active body control or S-classes with E-active body control, those get close. But this is just on a little bit of a different level. The smoothness, it's like if you've ever been in the ocean and you can feel a wave coming from behind you and you're going to body surf the wave. That's kind of how this V12 builds power. The turbos spool and feed in torque, but in a smooth way. Braking is the only time that I'm aware this thing even has a gearbox. That's the only time I'm reminded that it'll downshift, because I can feel it a little tiny bit. And then the rear steer kicks in, and the suspension just finesses everything to an insane degree. It keeps it so flat. It actually handles shockingly well for what this is, almost to the point where I wish I had a little bit more bolstering. But still, you would then sacrifice a little bit of comfort, a little bit of ease of ingress and egress. And that's not really what this thing is about. But yes, the power from the V12 is incredibly smooth. The steering is relatively devoid of feel, but it has like an organic sense of weight to it. It's not overweighted like a BMW steering wheel. It's not underweighted or video gamey in any way. But it just, you can tell that they've sat in a room and they've done countless hours of testing on this stuff with all different little mappings to different things. And it's just done well. It really is. The ride and the suspension I cannot say enough about. It's everything that you think it is. It is just that good. And then in terms of the quietness, the refinement in the cabin here, probably the best. I mean, we were in the Cullinan yesterday, and I think when you really back-to-back the two, I think the Cullinan is just that hair, that last little tenth a little bit quieter, a little bit more refined, a little tiny bit smoother than the Ghost here, but you are splitting hairs. Whoops, gotta get past these cyclists. Thanks to the V12, I can. But no, honestly, like, this is, okay, so this is the interesting thing. I think the Cullinan is just that last little bit more refined than the Ghost. But I like the Ghost. And only about 30% of that is the belladonna purple. And another 20% of it is the tailored purple that's on the interior. I'm loving this purple and off-white or gray spec. It is spectacular. Purple cars, more purple cars, please. But anyway, no, like, there's just something about sitting here in this low, long sedan with the spirit of ecstasy out over the hood, guiding my way. And since I'm lower, I feel more part of the road. And it almost, if I'm just giving a little bit more power and having a little bit of fun, it almost just feels a little bit more immersive than it was in the Cullinan. You just are a little bit more removed from everything in the Cullinan. And I just kind of like the Ghost here. I do. And so I could continue to ramble on about how good this thing is, but I think you guys get the picture. So thank you to Tori, thank you to Rolls-Royce, again, for letting me have a go in this Ghost Series 2. It's spectacular. And thank you guys for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Braking, rear steer. Amazing. V12. How can you not love that? What a thing. What a thing. Chills. Ah!